You're sitting there still checking your phone at 11 p.m. hoping for a message that isn't coming. And the worst part? You already know exactly how this ends. You know they're not going to change. You know they're going to withdraw again. You know this cycle will repeat until you can't take it anymore. But you keep hoping anyway. You keep waiting anyway. You keep yourself small and available, just in case they decide to show up today. Well, what if I told you there's a way to break this pattern so completely that you never fall back in, no matter how sweet they seem when they reappear? This is the conversation that changes everything. So here's the thing that nobody talks about when they discuss avoidant relationships. It's not about making them change. It's not about loving them better or harder or in a different way. And it's definitely not about proving your worth to someone who can't see it. The real game changer is understanding one specific principle that completely shifts your power dynamic in these situations. And once you understand this principle, you'll never look at avoidant patterns the same way again. What if everything you've been doing has actually been keeping you trapped? And what if the solution is not what you think it is at all? If you're ready to learn exactly how to detach in a way that sticks, that feels sustainable, that doesn't require constant willpower, comment the word detach below and let's begin. So let's talk about what's really happening in an avoidant dynamic. When you're with someone who avoids, there's this underlying agreement that gets created, even if you never explicitly said it. The agreement is that their comfort comes before your needs. The agreement is that their withdrawal is normal and your reaction to it is the problem. The agreement is that you should always be the one reaching out, showing up, trying harder, because that's just who you are, right? That's just what love looks like to you. But here's what I need you to understand. That agreement only exists because you keep reinforcing it every single time you bounce back. Every time they disappear for a week and you're still there when they decide to text. Every time they say something hurtful and you forgive it immediately because you're scared they'll leave. Every time you minimize your own hurt so they don't feel uncomfortable. You're literally training them to believe that they can treat you however they want and you'll always be there. Now, I'm not saying this to make you feel bad. I'm saying this because understanding this is the only way you actually get your power back. Because right now, your power is in their hands. You're waiting for them to decide if they want you. You're waiting for them to decide if they're ready. You're waiting for them to change. And every single day you wait, you're giving away more of your life, more of your energy, more of your potential to someone who isn't even thinking about you right now. Let me ask you something. If they were sitting around thinking about you, would they be ghosting you? Would they be pulling away? Would they be making you question your worth every single day? No, they wouldn't. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can actually move forward. Because moving forward doesn't mean waiting for them to change their mind. Moving forward means accepting that maybe they were never going to be the person you needed, no matter how hard you tried. Now, here's where most people get it wrong when they try to detach. They think detachment is about ignoring the person. They think it's about being cold or mean or suddenly acting like the avoidant person. They think they have to flip a switch and become someone they're not. But that's not what real detachment is at all. Real detachment is about shifting your focus. It's about moving your emotional energy from being dependent on someone else's actions to being invested in your own life. Think about it this way. Right now, your emotional state depends on whether they text you or not. Your day is good if they reach out. Your day is bad if they ignore you. Your entire sense of worth is tied to their behavior. That's not love. That's addiction. And the only way to break an addiction is to stop feeding it. But you don't break it by forcing yourself not to think about it. You break it by giving yourself something better to think about. You break it by making your own life so compelling that you don't have the mental and emotional space to obsess over their behavior anymore. This is why most people who try to detach end up falling back in. They're trying to detach through sheer willpower. They're white-knuckling it, trying not to think about the person, trying not to reach out, trying to stay strong. And for a while it works. But the second the person reappears with even a tiny bit of attention, they come crashing back because they haven't actually built anything to replace that connection. The real strategy is different. The real strategy is about creating a life that's so good, so full, so genuinely fulfilling that you don't actually need them to show up for you to be happy. And I'm not talking about fake self-care. I'm not talking about taking bubble baths and pretending you don't still think about them at 2 a.m. I'm talking about actual life building, real goals, real friendships, real pursuits that matter to you. So let's get specific about what this actually looks like. First, you need to understand that every moment you spend waiting for them is a moment you're not spending on yourself. Every conversation you replay in your head is energy you're not using for something productive. Every time you check their social media is a second of your life you're literally giving to them for free. And this matters because your attention is actually valuable. Your focus is actually powerful. And right now, you're giving it to someone who doesn't deserve it. The person you're trying to detach from is living their life, doing their thing, probably not thinking about you nearly as much as you're thinking about them. And I know that's hard to hear. I know it feels almost impossible that someone could mean so much to you while you mean so little to them. But that's actually the core of understanding avoidant relationships. The person with the avoidant attachment style is actually more comfortable being alone than being connected. They're more comfortable in their own world than in yours. So when they disappear, they're not thinking about you suffering. They're not strategizing about how to hurt you. They're just doing their normal thing and forgetting that you're waiting in the wings. Now, here's something really important that I want you to sit with for a second. The moment you accept that they might never change, everything shifts. Because that acceptance is actually freeing. It's not sad, it's not hopeless, it's actually liberating. Because it means you can stop trying to fix something that was never your job to fix. You can stop trying to be better so they'll choose you. You can stop trying to be smaller or quieter or less needy so they feel comfortable. You can just stop. But stopping isn't enough either. Because if you just stop trying and then sit around waiting to see if they notice that you stopped, you're still giving them the power. You're still playing their game. The real shift happens when you stop waiting for them to notice and you actually go live your life. You make plans with people who actually want to spend time with you. You pursue goals that matter to you. You build relationships with people who show up. You do things that make you feel alive and competent and worthy, not because you want them to see it, but because you deserve it. This is the part where people usually ask me, but what if I miss them? What if they come back and I've already moved on? And here's my honest answer. If they come back and you're genuinely happy in your life without them, you won't fall back in. You'll be able to look at them clearly, see the patterns, and choose differently. But if they come back and you're still waiting, still empty, still hoping, you'll fall right back into it because nothing will have changed on your end. This is why I say that detachment is not about them. It's about you. It's about building a life that's good enough that you wouldn't downgrade just because someone is finally paying attention to you again. It's about getting to a place where their reappearance is actually a choice you make, not something that happens to you. Now, let me tell you what's actually going to happen if you really commit to this. In the first few days or weeks, it's going to feel strange. You're going to have moments where you want to reach out. You're going to want to send them something. You're going to want to check their social media and see what they're doing. And here's the key to getting through this part. You have to interrupt that impulse before you act on it. So when you feel the urge to text them, you text someone else instead. When you want to check their Instagram, you open a book instead. When you want to reach out, you reach out to yourself through journaling or meditation or just sitting with the feeling. The urge will happen less and less frequently as time goes on, and eventually it won't happen at all. But there will be a specific moment when you realize you haven't thought about them for an entire day, and then a week, and then longer. And that moment is when you know that the detachment is actually working. That moment is when you know that you're actually moving on. But here's where people slip up. There's often a moment around 6 weeks or 2 months where the urge comes back hard. It's like their absence suddenly hits you again. Or maybe they actually do pop back up with some breadcrumb attention, and suddenly you're back to square one. This is the most dangerous moment. This is when most people fall back in, because at this point, you've done the work of detaching, so it feels safe to just reach out once. It feels safe to just respond. It feels safe to leave the door open just a little bit. And that's how the cycle continues. So here's what you need to do to make sure you don't fall back in. You need to get a clear picture of what this dynamic has cost you. Not just emotionally, but in actual time and energy and opportunities. Think about the things you didn't do because you were waiting for them. Think about the friends you didn't spend time with because you were hoping they'd call. Think about the goals you didn't pursue because you didn't have the mental and emotional space. Think about the way you downplayed yourself to make them comfortable. Write all of this down. Keep it somewhere you can access it when you feel weak. Because here's the reality. In the moment when they come back and they're being charming or sweet or telling you they've changed, you're not going to remember clearly. You're going to remember the good parts. Your brain is going to gloss over the hurt. Your emotions are going to cloud your judgment. But if you have this written down, if you have concrete evidence of what this cost you, you can make a different choice. Another thing you need to do is create a specific protocol for when they reach out, because they probably will reach out at some point. Not because they suddenly realized you were amazing and they want to be with you, but because avoidant people have this pattern where they test the waters every few months. They want to know if you're still available. They want to know if the door is still open. And if you respond, you're telling them yes. So here's what your protocol looks like. When they reach out, you wait 24 hours before you respond. Not to play games, but to break the automatic impulse, to give yourself time to think clearly, to remember everything you've written down about why this didn't work, to access the part of your brain that isn't flooded with emotion. Then, if you choose to respond at all, you keep it brief. You don't fall into conversation. You don't start sharing about your life. You stay cordial but distant. And you absolutely do not agree to meet or call or do anything that reestablishes the dynamic. Most likely, after 1 or 2 of these brief, cordial responses, they'll stop reaching out. Because what they actually want is the supply of your attention and your hope. When you stop providing that, when you become boring and unresponsive, they'll move on to someone who is more available. And that's not mean. That's just how this works. You're not being mean by having a boundary. You're being honest about what you can and cannot do. Now I want to talk about something that's really important, and it's the part that people don't usually think about. Once you've detached, once you've rebuilt your life, once you're genuinely happy without them, you need to be intentional about who you let in next time. Because if you don't learn to recognize the early signs of avoidance, you'll just end up in this exact situation again. And the signs are actually not that hard to see once you know what you're looking for. The first sign is inconsistency. If someone is hot and cold, if they're present one day and ghosting the next, that's not romantic. That's a red flag. The second sign is poor communication about their feelings or the relationship. If someone can't or won't talk about where things are going, that's another red flag. The third sign is that they're always the one who gets to decide how close or far you are. You reach out, they pull away. You pull away, they lean in just enough to keep you interested. They're always the one controlling the rhythm of the relationship. And the fourth sign is that their needs always take priority. Their comfort matters more than your feelings. Their schedule matters more than your time. Their emotional well-being matters more than yours. If you see these signs early, you have a choice to make. You can either accept that this might be how it always is and stay anyway, hoping things will improve. Or you can recognize that this person doesn't have the capacity to meet you where you are, and you can walk away before you've invested 6 months or 2 years or 5 years of your life waiting. This is where your standards actually matter. And I don't mean standards about how tall someone is or how much money they make. I mean standards about how you're treated. I mean standards about consistency. I mean standards that say, I deserve someone who wants to be with me. I deserve someone who shows up. I deserve someone who doesn't make me question my worth every single day. I deserve someone who is emotionally available and willing to work on the relationship. These are the standards that actually protect you. Most people don't have these standards because they were taught that love means accepting anyone who's willing to accept you. They were taught that if you love someone enough, they'll change. They were taught that being needy is a character flaw. They were taught that their job is to make it easy for other people to be with them. And all of this is backwards. Real love is not about accepting crumbs from someone who isn't willing to give you their presence. Real love is about being with someone who actively chooses you every single day. So here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to decide that today is the day you stop waiting. Today is the day you accept that this person might not change. Today is the day you decide that your life is more important than their potential. Today is the day you reclaim your attention, your energy, your focus, and your time. And I want you to do this not out of anger or hurt or spite. I want you to do this out of self-respect because you deserve that. The journey of detaching is not easy. There will be moments when you question your decision. There will be moments when you remember the good parts and forget the painful parts. There will be moments when you miss them. But there will also be moments when you realize how much better you feel. Moments when you laugh without pretending. Moments when you feel light instead of heavy. Moments when you remember what it feels like to be excited about your own life instead of anxious about someone else's behavior. And those moments become more frequent. The good days become the norm instead of the exception. And eventually you look back and you realize that you can't quite remember why you waited so long for someone who was never going to choose you anyway. You can't remember why you made yourself smaller. You can't remember why you accepted so much less than you deserve. That's when you know you're truly free. That's when you know the detachment has worked. That's when you know you're never going to fall back in. Because you've finally figured out that your worth doesn't come from whether someone else recognizes it. Your worth is inherent. It's already there. And the only person who has to see it and believe it is you. Everything else follows from that one foundation. So today, make the decision. Make it real. Write it down if you have to. Tell someone about it if that helps you stay accountable. But most importantly, start living it. Start redirecting that attention. Start building that life. Start showing yourself the consistency and the care and the presence that you were trying to give to someone who couldn't receive it. And watch what happens when you do. You've already spent enough time waiting. The question is, what are you going to do with the time you have left?